When I discovered my husband as secret, didn't he cry? Not right away. I sat at our dinner table, staring at the family photo hanging on the wall, the one with his fake smile and my blind love, and felt something inside me twist into something cold, sharp and beautifully cruel. It started with a phone call. A woman's ass voice, trembling polite. She said, "I think your husband is the father of my child." I almost laughed. But when she sent photos, my laughter died. The little boy had my husband's exact eyes, gray and distant like a storm that never ends. For a week I pretended everything was normal. Breakfast, work, kisses on the cheek. But every time he said "I love you," I imagined the other woman hearing the same words. Then one night when he came home late, I met him at the door, wearing the same smile he'd fallen for years ago. Didn't he realize it was the smile that would break him? "Rough day?" I asked sweetly. He sighed, loosening his tie. "You have no idea." "Oh." I said softly, "I think I do." That was the moment he knew something had changed. He confessed that night. Of course he didn't. Men like my husband, men who think they're clever, they only talk when the walls start closing in. For 3 days I played the role of the perfect wife. I made his favorite meals. I smiled when he spoke. But I also hacked into his email, his iCloud, his secret folder hidden under the name work expenses. Inside were photos, birthdays, a woman holding a child, a little boy in a Spider-Man shirt with a cake shaped like a 5. My husband was there too, laughing, holding that boy like he was his world. The woman's name was Tanya. She lived in the same city, just 15 minutes from us. I visited her salon pretending to be a client. She didn't recognize me at first. But when I told her my husband had recommended the place, I saw panic flicker in her eyes. Later that night I printed everything, every message, photo, transaction. I placed the evidence in a folder and slid it into his briefcase. The next morning he went to work, carrying the proof of his own destruction. When he came home, his face was pale. "You went through my things," he whispered. I tilted my head. Didn't he have to? "You left them everywhere." He sank into the couch, shaking. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Like what? I asked. Having a family, then replacing it with another. He reached for me. I stepped back. For the first time I saw the fear in his eyes. Not of losing me, but of what I might do next. People think revenge is loud screaming, breaking chaos. But mine was quiet, precise. I wanted him to watch his perfect world rot from the inside. I started by emptying the joint account, half legally mine. I moved it into a new one under my name only. Then I spoke to a lawyer. She listened carefully, then smiled and said, "You're sitting on a gold mine." My husband owns 60% of a small construction company, one that had just signed $1 million contract. He had no idea I knew the books, the loopholes, the silent partners. ID helped him start that business after all. So I made calls, quiet ones, to his competitors, to his accountant, to anyone who would listen when I said, "You might want to check your partner as personal finances." He started making mistakes. Tiny ones at first, forgetting meetings, missing a few calls, but they were enough. My little nudges had done what I wanted. The man who'd always been 2 steps ahead was stumbling through a maze ID drawn. I didn't confront Tanya again. Instead, I let her become my unintentional ally. She posted a picture on her public profile, the way people do, casual, proud. Her son asleep on her chest, a caption about my whole world. Someone in his office saw it and forwarded it to a group chat with a single laced comment. I ascended that Henry's kid from there. The rumor factory kicked into gear. At the company, whispers turned into questions. Contractors called to ask for references. A client wanted a meeting and then canceled. We found another vendor. His inbox filled with polite but cold messages. I watched him read them at the kitchen table while I chopped vegetables like nothing bad was happening. He kept asking who told them, as if this were damage control and not a moral reckoning. One night, drunk and reckless, he tried to bargain. He grabbed my wrist and said, "I can fix this. I'll tell Tanya it was a mistake." While he was panting, pleading like a man cornered by his own cowardice. "You can fix it," I said, voice soft as frost. "You can fix the son you hid. You can fix the years you lied to me while feeding the other woman dinners. Your hands made fix you exactly." His silence echoed richer than any confession. For a second, I wanted the messy catharsis of fight, a public humiliation, a confession that would make everything raw and honest. But I was playing a longer game. Public spectacle feeds sympathy. Slow corrosion kills quietly and thoroughly. So I turned to his colleagues. I sent polite emails from an anonymous account, hints not accusations. Evidence not gore. A scanned photo here, a bank transaction there. I didn't to destroy him with one blow. I let his empire wobble so he could feel each stone fall. The night the bank called with a freeze notice, he barreled into our bedroom like a man whose house was on fire. He looked at me as if I deleted. Panic, not remorse, filled his eyes. "You did this," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I replied. "I did what you taught me. I planned. I watched the man who D once taught me to trust in plans crumble into a million small, sharp decisions. And somewhere in the distance, a childish laugh on a video clip I'd seen months ago echoed the sound of something he'd chosen. I went to bed that night with the folder tucked under my pillow. It felt heavier than any weapon. The next morning, I found him sitting at the edge of the bed, his face buried in his hands. The sun poured through the curtains, but he looked like a man living in permanent dusk. "I need to tell you everything," he said finally. His voice was hoarse, stripped of arrogance. "You deserve the truth." I didn't, he interrupted. I just folded my arms and waited. He told me he'd met Tanya 6 years ago, during a project out of town. It was supposed to be one night. He said like that somehow made it noble. But she got pregnant, and instead of coming clean, he built his life around 2 schedules, mine and hers. He paid her rent, visited on business trips, told her I was a colleague. The child wasn't an accident. He said it was the one thing that made him feel real. His words burned like acid. When he finished, he looked at me, searching for some sign of forgiveness. But there was none. "You didn't want to tell me," I said quietly. "You just wanted to control the explosion." He winced. "I didn't want to lose you. You lost me the second you let her call." I got up, walked to my closet and pulled out the suitcase. His face went white. "Where are you going?" "I'm not leaving," I said. "Zipping it up, you are." He laughed short, bitter. "You think you can throw me out of my own house?" I handed him a folder. Inside were bank statements, contracts, proof of company, funds used for Tanya's rent and child support. "Actually, I can," I said, "because everything you bought, this house, those cars, even your company shares, were bought under joint marital assets, meaning I leaned in half of it as mine." He stared at me like I'd turned into someone else. Maybe I had. I told him to pack a bag. He didn't, he argued. He knew the war had already begun, and I wasn't fighting to win anymore. I was fighting to end him. As he walked out the door, suitcase in hand, I whispered the same words he'd said to me 1,000 times before leaving for work trips. Don't be late. Only this time he didn't look back. For the first week after he left, the house was unbearably quiet. His coffee mug still sat by the sink. His tie was still hanging on the back of the chair. It felt like living in the ruins of someone else's life. But underneath the silence, there was a steady hum, the sound of freedom finally breathing again. He tried to call, of course. Every day at first. Then every other. I didn't answer. I let his voicemails pile up. Apologies, excuses. Desperate promises. My lawyer said not to respond. He is panicking, she explained. He'll try to twist this into reconciliation or guilt you into dropping the case. Don't take the bait. But he wasn't just panicking, he was plotting. 2 weeks after he left, I woke up to a string of notifications. His company had released a statement claiming internal discrepancies caused by an employee, and that employee's name was mine. He blamed me for the financial irregularities. 1D exposed. Clever in a pathetic way. If he could make me look unstable or vindictive, maybe the investors would take him back. Maybe Tanya would still see him as the provider he pretended to be. But I wasn't going to defend myself in words. I had proof. I sent an anonymous packet with every transfer, photo and document to his board of directors. Not a rant. Just facts. Cold, clean, undeniable. By Friday, the company suspended him pending investigation. His name was quietly scrubbed from the website. Tanya's salon page went offline. The life he built on deceit started cracking like glass under heat. Still, there were nights I lay awake, wondering if I'd gone too far. If maybe revenge had turned me into the thing I hated, calculating, ruthless. Then I remember the photo of that little boy blowing out birthday candles without his father there. No, I wasn't the villain in this story. I was just the consequence. That night, a message arrived from a number I didn't recognize. You think you've won, but you don't know what I'm capable of. He finally stopped apologizing. Now he wanted war. When I read his message, I didn't panic. I didn't even expecting it. Men like him never accept defeat. They just switch weapons. The next morning I noticed things. Subtle, invasive things. My mailbox left open. My car door slightly ajar, though I knew I'd locked it. My social media accounts flooded with new followers, all fake profiles with no posts, no faces. I knew his style. He was trying to rattle me to make me seem paranoid. Then came the first real blow. Someone sent an anonymous tip to my employer, claiming I'd misused company data and harassed a co-worker. HR called me in. The tone was polite, but cautious. They said they had to look into it. He weaponized my job. I didn't cry. I gathered everything: emails, texts, timestamps. My lawyer sent a warning letter that same afternoon, copying his company and his lawyer. The message was short and lethal. Any further harassment will be treated as defamation and intimidation, both civilly and criminally. 2 days later, I received an email from him. Just 3 words: you started this. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent his threatening message, along with a copy of the previous text, to the police. I wasn't stupid. Revenge was only satisfying if you survived it. But the funny thing about trying to destroy someone smarter than you is that you only dig your own grave faster. I learned from a friend who still worked in his office that his accounts had been audited again, this time by the IRS. Apparently someone had forwarded suspicious activity tied to personal withdrawals and undeclared income. All real. All traceable. All his fault. That same week, Tanya filed for child support. I almost felt bad for her. She was finally seeing the man I'd already buried emotionally. Months ago, he tried to call again late at night. "Please," he said. "When I finally picked up, we can fix this." "You're destroying me." "No," I said calmly. "I'm not destroying you, Henry. I'm just letting you see what you built." There was silence. Then a soft, bitter laugh. "You think you're better than me?" "I don't think I said I know." And for the first time he hung up on me the next day. I saw him sitting in his car across the street from our old house, watching, waiting, and then I realized something. He wasn't fighting for love anymore. He was fighting for control. And I was about to take that from him too. I stopped the moment I realized he was predictable. Control was his drug, and I was the withdrawal. The first time I saw his car parked across the street, I called the police, filed a report, and installed cameras around the house. The second time I didn't call anyone. I let him watch. I wanted him to believe I was sleeping. That his presence scared me. That illusion was big. I began staging things. Lights left on at odd hours. A window slightly cracked. A car he didn't recognize parked in my driveway, borrowed from a friend. I wanted him confused. He did think I had someone new. Someone who might replace him in a story where he still believed he was the main character. 3 nights later, it worked. At 2 a.m., the motion camera pinged. A tall figure approached my door, hoodie up, moving like a man torn between rage and regret. He hesitated, then tried. The handle locked. He knocked softly at first, then harder. I didn't move. My phone was already recording. "Open up," he hissed. "We need to talk." He rattled the door again, then shouted my name. It echoed through the street. Desperate and ugly. The neighbors' lights flicked on. Someone called out, asking if everything was okay. That's when I stepped outside, phone in hand, camera rolling. "You need to leave, Henry," I said loudly, clearly, so everyone could hear. He froze. "You want to answer my calls. You want to talk to me. I don't owe you anything," I said. Not words, not forgiveness, not even attention. The police arrived minutes later. He didn't resist when they took him away, but he kept staring at me. Not with hate, with disbelief. Like he couldn't understand how the woman who once whispered, "I love you," had turned into the woman calmly watching him lose everything. The officer handed me a card. "We'll file this as harassment. You can request a restraining order." I nodded. "Please do that night." I rewatched the footage. The shaking of his hands. The wildness in his eyes. The fall of a man who thought love was ownership. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was something colder. Peace. The restraining order was approved within a week. The moment he was served, the last thread connecting us legally, emotionally snapped. I thought that would be the end. But the thing about chaos is that it doesn't. He just vanish. It looks for new hosts. 2 days later, Tanya showed up at my doorstep. I almost didn't recognize her. Hair unwashed, eyes hollow. She clutched a folder to her chest like a lifeline. "I didn't he know he was married?" she said before I could speak. "Not until you came to the salon that day." I said nothing. I just motioned for her to continue. "He told me you were divorced. That your house was his, that your money was his. When I found out, I kicked him out." But now her voice cracked. "He is threatening me too. Said if I go to the police, he'll ruin me." I believed her instantly. That was exactly his style, shifting the blame, spreading the poison. She handed me the folder. Inside were documents, financial records, messages, and one particularly interesting piece of paper, a deed transfer attempt. He did try to sell a property that wasn't entirely his, using forged signatures. Mine included the final nail. I called my lawyer. "We have everything we need," she said. "Forgery, harassment, fraud. He has finished." For the first time in months, I exhaled without shaking. The following week he was arrested. No dramatic chase, no screaming. Just quiet surrender. His mugshot hit the local news. Local business owner charged with fraud and domestic harassment. His company cut all ties. Tanya filed for sole custody. People love stories of poetic justice, but the truth of it feels quieter than you'd expect. There were no cheers. No cinematic closure. Just silence, the kind that hums when you finally put down something heavy you've been carrying too long. I saw him one last time by accident. Courthouse hallway. He looked older, smaller. Like a man crushed by gravity. He didn't speak. Neither did I. But as I walked past, he whispered, barely audible, "You win." I didn't. He stopped walking. Because it wasn't about winning anymore. It was about ending. When the court finally closed the case, I expected relief to wash over me like a wave. Instead, it came slowly in fragments. Like sunlight sneaking through curtains after a storm that lasted too long. The house felt different now. The air was lighter, the silence no longer heavy. I sold most of the furniture we bought together, every reminder of him gone. The bed frame, the coffee table. Even the wedding china that had gathered dust in the cabinet. I replaced it all with mismatched, thrift pieces that somehow felt more mine than anything ever had. I started going on morning walks. At first it was just about movement. Breathing, proving to myself that the world was still out there. Then I began noticing things again. The smell of rain on concrete, the sound of kids laughing, my own laugh when it returned, raw and unfamiliar. Tanya and I kept in touch. Odd isn't it? Two women who shared the same betrayal, building something like friendship out of ash. Her son was growing fast. She sent photos sometimes. There was no resentment between us, just a quiet understanding. We both survived the same hurricane, from different sides one evening. Months later, I found a letter in my mailbox. No name on the envelope, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from him. Inside a single line. I finally understand what I destroyed. No apologies. No pleas. Just that. I read it once, then burned it over the sink. Watching the flame eat the paper, I realized forgiveness wasn't something I owed him. It was something I owed myself. That night I sat on my porch sipping tea. Watching the stars blink awake one by one. For the first time in years, I didn't feel watched, controlled, or afraid. I felt free, painfully, beautifully free. I opened my phone and deleted the folder that had started it all. The proof, the evidence. The photos gone. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about closure. And as the screen went dark, I whispered it's over. Not to him, but to the version of myself that had spent years living in someone else's shadow. Because the real victory was he destroying him. It was finally remembering who I was before he broke me.